help of good association, the mind of Bhola Bhala transformed. He understood the mechanism of mind, and now he controls the mind rather than being controlled by the mind. His mind is now more calm and focused more on studies. Thus, Bhola Bhala at the end of this year stood first in his class. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that mind is the best friend if it is controlled. On the other hand, if the mind is uncontrolled, it is worst of our enemies. We can see that by studying the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, etc., we can control the powerful mind and make our life peaceful and happy.
Hare Krishna. So, can all of you take a guess which professional team did this drama? Any guesses? They are second year BTech students from SIT College. So, Pune University. So, please give them a loud round of applause for putting up such a wonderful skit on me and my mind. And I yet have another very good news with all of us. Amongst all of us, we are having the speaker for today, His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. So while Prabhuji joins up on the stage, I would like to give a very brief introduction of Prabhuji. His long introduction, well, then the show will get over. So I'll just give a very brief one. So His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is a mentor, monk, very well-renowned speaker. He has authored over 25 books on applied mindfulness and purposeful living. He is author of 3,500 daily inspirational meditations on Bhagavad Gita that are followed by, can you guess, over 500,000 people throughout the daily feeds. So he has been invited as a speaker at TEDx, World Peace Conference, UNESCO, Intel, Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, Stanford, Princeton, Yale, Harvard, Massachusetts and Cambridge. And can you guess? Prabhuji gives 400 talks across 100 cities in 4 continents every year. So you can imagine what kind of a personality we are having amidst all of us. It's a great fortune for all of us. Bigger round of applause. So without any further delay, I will request His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu to kindly address all of us. Hare Krishna.
Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti-vedanta Swami iti namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद. हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for coming today in the evening. And I'll speak on this topic of be mindful or the mind will make you a fool. I'll speak this broadly in 4 parts. Can you go ahead? Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So 4 E's: education, experimentation, evaluation. Can you go ahead and start with education? Yeah. So Martin Luther King said that our spiritual power, we have guidance. Essentially, what has happened is we in today's world have phenomenal power to control the outer world and to have luxuries of the kind that were unimaginable even a few decades or centuries ago. And these luxuries were unimaginable even for royalty. So air conditioning, mobile communication, air transport. So we have phenomenally improved our situation externally. And yet, I was just a few months ago at a World Health Organization conference, and one of the speakers over there was telling how suicide is one of the most alarming public health problems today. More people are killing themselves than are being killed by others. 1 million people commit suicide every year. That means, since I started this talk, almost 3 people have committed suicide. One suicide every 40 seconds. So what is missing? Now, normally when we talk about depression, addiction, any kind of mental health problems, and the ultimate of this is suicide. So here what is happening? Something within us is working against us. So what goes on inside us? We have a lot of scientific knowledge which explains what happens in the outer world. But what goes on in our inner world is not so easily understood. And about 20-25 years ago, maybe 25-30 years ago, before I was introduced to spirituality, I was quite a fan of astronomy and astrophysics. So I had my own telescope and I would behold the sky. And I was once waiting for an eclipse. For months and months we were anticipating. In fact, I had purchased a new telescope to just observe it. And then before that eclipse, I had some kind of quarrel with someone. And then when the eclipse came and it went, and my friend was saying, wasn't that beautiful? What? Then it struck me at that time that although I am so interested in the eclipse, still what goes on inside me can captivate me so much that even something interesting outside, I get a complete blank. So that was the time I started thinking, what happens inside us? So this is the education that we very much need today. And there is in the Bhagavad Gita a model of the self, of what goes on inside us. To understand this models of the self says that our self is 3 levels: body, mind and soul. That is like the hardware, the software and the user. So through science and technology, we have improved the hardware phenomenally. But unfortunately, the software, far from being improved, is actually apparently becoming worse. So much so that the software is causing the device to be destroyed. So what if we consider the user to be like the consciousness or the soul, the software to be like the mind, and the hardware to be like the body? Now I have used another word over here: lower self and higher self. What I mean in this is that we all experience that there are some voices within us which we just keep popping up. Hey, you can't do this. You'll not be able to do this. Maybe this is not good. Sometimes that voice speaks for good, sometimes that voice speaks for bad. So basically, one thing that psychologists almost universally agree, that we are not masters in our own house. That means inside us, what happens is not always in our control. So with this model of the self, let's try to understand further what goes on. Can you go ahead? Yeah. So now, please behind a little bit. So we'll go to the second part, experimentation. So this is just a theoretical model. Is there any way we can get some more experiential sense of this? So we'll do a simple thought experiment. Go ahead, yeah. So wherever you're seated, try to sit as comfortably as possible and close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, now take 3 deep breaths. 1, 2, 3. Now continue with your eyes, continue to be closed. Look ahead in front of you. Because your eyes are closed, you cannot see what is physically in front of you. But still there is some kind of screen on which you may see various things. You may see this room, you may see your home, you may see a friend, you may see your phone, or you may see a variety of images coming and going. Or you might just see a dull haze of colors. Whatever you see on some kind of screen inside you. Now, try, if possible, to step back and look at not the screen, but the seer of that screen. The seer. Who is it that is looking at that screen? Try to take a step back and catch sight of that seer. Let's try once again. You can see the screen, but who is it that is seeing the screen? We'll try to step back. No matter how many times we step back, the seer steps back with us. What we are looking for is what we are looking with. We are that seer. So that seer is you, the soul, and the screen is your mind. You can take one deep breath and then open your eyes. You go ahead. So, when normal perception happens, these 3 things, the inner seer, the inner screen and the outer seer, they all come together. And that's how we are able to perceive things. Whenever, if the outer screen is there, so the outer scene is there, but the inner screen, that is the mind, has gone off somewhere. That's when we say somebody has become absent-minded. The ultimate example of absent-mindedness is somebody lives in a farm, a horse farm, and that person rides on a horse and goes around all over the farm searching for the horse they are riding on. So when we are absent-minded, it is not that the mind is absent. Mind is very much present, but it is not present where the body is present. So, how many of you have experienced absent-mindedness? Oh, many of you have not experienced, you are very special souls. Or, the other possibility is, you are so absent-minded that you don't even notice your absent-mindedness. Now, with this model, the inner screen, the outer scene, and the inner seer. With this model, let's try to make sense of various typical mental health problems. Can you go ahead? Yeah, let's keep it here only. So go back. So if this inner screen is like say a TV screen or a movie screen, on this screen we see various things. But this screen is very peculiar. I was a few months ago, a couple of years ago, I was in California and I was staying at a friend's place. And California is a very beautiful country, so he had a big window, and from that we were beholding the natural greenery and we were chatting. So as I was observing, suddenly out of that greenery I saw emerging a giant ape and charging toward the window. That ape was like one of the apes you might see in the Planet of the Apes series. Huge, furious. And it charged toward the window and raised its fist to smash the window. Initially I was amazed to see a ape. When I saw it aggressively marching toward the window, I got a little alarmed. Then I looked at my friend and he was grinning. Yes, I looked at him carefully and I saw he had something in his hand. And then it looked something like a remote. And then he clicked the remote, and as soon as he clicked the remote, that ape disappeared. I said, what's that? So he had designed the window in such a way that the window could double as a TV screen. And just for having fun, he had made the window screen, he had made a brief video clipping with the same background as what is seen through the window and just a ape superimposed on it. Now because he knew what was happening, so he was amused. I didn't know what was happening, so I was alarmed. So similarly for us, our mind, it is meant to function like a window, but at any moment it can become like a TV screen. Can you go ahead? So here inner screen becomes a TV screen, and instead of showing us the outer scene, it shows us something imaginary. Can you go ahead? Yeah, evaluation. Yeah. So that's why when anything pops up on this inner screen, not every thought deserves our thought. What do I mean by this? That the word thought we use in two different senses. We say, I just got a thought. And the second is, I have given this a lot of thought. And I say, I just got a thought. That means, we could say in terms of this metaphor, some image, some stimulus has popped up on my inner screen. But I have given this a lot of thought. That means that I have analyzed this, I have studied this. So I have given it conscientious attention. So everything that pops up on our inner screen does not deserve our attention. Why? Because sometimes if we are functioning, and while functioning, suddenly our screen changes into a TV. And it changes into a TV, now we are watching and we don't even notice what is happening. So let's consider two of the major mental health problems that most people have nowadays. One is depression and the other is anxiety. In terms of this inner screen metaphor, when we have depression can sometimes be a clinical medical phenomena with needing drugs, but usually depression essentially happens when the inner screen starts becoming like a TV and starts showing all the terrible things that have happened in your life. Oh, this person did like this, that person did like that, that person did like that, that person did like that. Oh, everything keeps going wrong in my life. Nothing ever works. And because of that, when we start observing this, when we start observing, we start getting depressed. Nothing will ever work right in my life. One of my friends is in America is a suicide intervention counselor. That means he mans a suicide helpline. So if somebody is getting the suicidal urge, now it's interesting how many people think about suicide, but the suicidal tendency also varies according to gender. In general, men are more aggressive than women, whereas women tend to be more emotional than men. So often women get depressed more. So women attempt suicide more, but men commit suicide more. aggressiveness is there. So that aggressiveness can be toward other people, or the aggressiveness can be toward yourself also. So this suicidal tendency is also to some extent significantly vary according to gender. But anyway, why I'm telling this is, so this is a particular incident of a girl. She called this friend and she said, I have committed suicide. What do you mean? So not that her host was calling, rather that she had taken the poison pills and then she had second thought, no, I don't want to die. So fortunately, there was an ambulance nearby. They rushed the ambulance and she was saved. Then eventually, and they were counseling her. He was counseling her. So he asked, what happened? Why did you attempt suicide? So she said, I was in a relationship with a boy and I called him and he didn't pick up my phone. Really? And then he says, no, then I committed suicide. What? How many times we have called someone and they have not answered our call? We can't even count that many times. It's happened with everyone. But in this case, it just doesn't make any sense. But if you hear, what stimulus will start what movie inside us, we can't see. So in her case, what happened is, you could say iteration, a manifestation of a deep fear within us. In my college talks in the West, I talk about overcoming fear. So I did a whole series once in Columbus, Ohio. So I studied a lot about what are top 10 fears of people across various centuries, 18th century, 19th century, 20th century, 21st century. So in the 21st century, 2 fears have been added to the top list. One is the fear of terrorists and the other is the fear of rejection. I try to enter into a relationship and the other person rejects me. Or I am in a relationship and then they reject me. So that's that's a great fear for people. So now in her case, when the boy did not respond to her call, she started thinking, oh, why is he not responding to my call? No, maybe he doesn't care for me anymore. Maybe he has left me. Maybe he's already with someone else. Maybe even if I form a relationship in future, that person will also leave me. Maybe there is something wrong with me because of which I will not be able to sustain any relationship. And 10 years down the line, all my friends will be in happy long-term relationships and I'll be all alone and they will all have pity on me. How pitiable my life will be. I don't want to be an object of others' pity. I don't want to have such a pitiable life. Let me end my life. Now, if you see this train of thoughts, at one level, it is far-fetched. But at another level, it is understandable. So, when somebody sees something, a stimulus, this thought, not every thought deserves our thought. Why? Because one thought comes up, and then if we dwell on it, it's like on your face, if you are using your phone on Facebook, say your friend has updated their Facebook profile photo. Oh, really? Maybe I should just check what photo they put. And I just do it for 1 minute. And you click 1 minute, and then you see one more photo, and then you see one more video, and then you see one more photo. And instead of 1 minute, 6 hours will go away. So what happens? Maybe at that time, that notification does not deserve to be noticed by you. So similarly for us, in our inner screen, any unpleasant stimulus can trigger a negative chain of thoughts, can trigger a movie. And if it starts a tragedy movie, where we are distressed, victimized, and we end up becoming depressed. Now conversely, so basically in this case, what is happening? The inner screen is displaying a movie. And maybe this girl, she had been in a relationship before and somebody had left her. And everybody has some scars. Some people's scars are visible, some people's are not. But so now, same way, the inner screen can start When it starts telling about the past, we get depressed. When it starts depicting a horror story about the future, then it starts causing fear. It starts causing worry. It starts causing anxiety. So you go to your college and your professor gives you a strange look. He says, what happened? Is he going to flunk me in my exam? Is he angry with me? What's going to happen? So we can start imagining so many things. So basically, we need to evaluate whenever any thought pops up within us. Does this thought deserve my attention? So mindfulness simply means that we need to be aware. Mindful, that means we should be aware of our situations and our emotions. We should be aware of the physical screen that we are on, and we should be aware of what the physical scene that we are in, and we should be aware of what is happening on our inner screen. If we are not, then we can be taken for a ride by our mind. Can you go ahead? Now this is a very significant point, that our thoughts do not have any power on us till we give them our thought. That means, say some notification comes up on your screen, phone or computer screen. Now unless you click it, it's not going to consume your screen and it's not going to consume your time. It is there. Sometimes the notifications come that you can't just switch off. You sometimes look at where is the cross. The cross is colored in such a way that you can't even notice it. And sometimes some notifications come in such a way, let's say if you are visiting a website and then they have some movies that just get, some videos that get auto-activated. So you don't have to do anything to activate it. Just going on that page, it will activate it. So that's like for us a habit that has happened. When there is a habit, that in the particular situation, immediately a particular movie starts off. A particular chain of thought start off. So how do we learn to evaluate our own thoughts? For that, we need to become like an observer of our thoughts. Can you go ahead? Yeah, keep it there. So, observer, we are discussing about evaluation now. So just maybe a few weeks ago, the Cricket World Cup got over. So I was in Australia, one of my friends was in London, and one of his friends had come from India to England for the various cricket matches there. So when the India-Pakistan cricket match was to be there, at that time, the tickets were outrageous, like 2,000 pounds for a ticket. 2,000 pounds is like 2 lakh rupees for one ticket. And so this friend of my friend, when the India-Pakistan match was to happen, at that time, there was a fear that rains might wipe out that match. So now what happens, the ICC has a rule that if a rain wipes out the match, they will refund the ticket. But they will refund only the original price. And these tickets sell in black. So you don't get any refund practically there. So anyway, so this friend of my friend was saying, that this friend of my friend was atheist, but he's saying, I'm praying to God that rains not come. So that the match can go on. So anyway, suppose a cricket match is going on. Now all the spectators are very interested. The umpires are right in the middle, and the umpire has to be very observant. So in English there are two words: disinterested and uninterested. Anyone knows the difference? Maybe you're preparing for GRE or TOEFL or something. Disinterested or uninterested? Or maybe both, all of you are not interested. Yeah? Yes? Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's a good guess. Yeah. Disinterested and uninterested. Thank you. Yeah, that could be one meaning. The specific meaning I was looking for here is that Disinterested means no vested interests. Disinterested party means an impartial party. Uninterested means that they have no interest at all. I don't care for it. So in a cricket match, how should the umpire be? Disinterested or uninterested? Disinterested. Say the bowler bowls and the batsman misses and the ball hits the foot of the batsman. And all the players appeal, how's that? And the umpire says, I was not watching the match. What? What are you doing here then? Isn't it? You're here, you have to watch the match. So the umpire has to be interested. But at the same time, the umpire also has to be disinterested. Disinterested means not that the umpire should be in favor of any particular team. Say if the umpire is in favor of the bowling team, then every appeal, the umpire just gives out. And then the spectators say, the umpire get out. There are some umpires who are partial and they become very unpopular. So the umpire cannot be having any vested interest. Umpire needs to be disinterested. At the same time, the umpire needs to be interested. That means the umpire evaluates every appeal based on merit. And sometimes the appeal is right, the batsman is out. Sometimes the appeal is wrong and the batsman is not out. So similarly for us to evaluate our thoughts, we need to become like an umpire. And inside us is like a cricket match going on. And there are various fielders that are appealing. Say right now you are sitting, maybe one thought is appealing to you. Hey, this class has gone for a long time. I have not checked my phone. Any urgent messages? Maybe I should check it. Maybe another thought is coming up. Actually, this is a little unpleasant and warm. Another thought might be, I'm not so used to sitting on the floor. How long will this class go on? My knees are stretching. My knees are paining. And another thought may be that, no, this is too complicated. I can't understand this. Now, all these thoughts are going on. Another thought, of course, will be there. What is there for Prasad today? So now, when all these thoughts are there, at that time, we have to choose which thought to give attention. So when some thought appears, then what do we do? If you are interested in the subject, then even if you feel a little, maybe I'm not so comfortable sitting on the floor, but it's not going to be a long class, just half an hour, 45 minutes, I can manage it. So that window pops up, but you minimize it. But if we are not evaluating properly, any window pops up and it takes away our attention. So we need to learn to evaluate our thoughts. And for that, we need to become an observer of our thoughts. Observer like an umpire. And how do we do this? It is first of all, if we do the first steps, education, if we understand that many different thoughts pop up within me and I can become an observer. And we may not be able to observe immediately, but gradually we can start observing. First time, maybe 25, 30 years ago, when I gave my first public talk, I was in school, at the elocution competition. So I was just going on the dais, at that time, suddenly something within me spoke. You are going to make a fool of yourself. And I looked around, it was like almost a real voice. There was no one there. But somehow that unnerved me. And whenever I become nervous, I start speaking very fast. And then the more nervous I become, the faster I become. So it was a 7-minute talk, and I started like a super fast express. It's like somebody is giving you a ride, you sit in the car, and even before you're seated, boom, the car starts off. So now people couldn't make head or tail of what I was saying. And because they couldn't make head or tail, so they started becoming disinterested. They started becoming distracted rather. That means some of them started looking at the wall, some of them started looking at each other, some of them looking at the door. And now when I saw that they were not interested, I became more nervous. So I started speaking even faster. And a 7-minute talk, I had rehearsed it several times, but I finished it within 3.5 minutes. I didn't know what to do after that. So at that time I didn't know what happened. But But now, also whenever I give big talks, sometimes little nervousness comes in. Hey, you may make a fool of yourself. But then I know, this is just the voice popping up from the mind. I don't have to pay attention. Yeah, that's possible. But it has not happened many times. I've spoken hundreds, thousands of times till now. And things have gone on reasonably well. So when we learn to evaluate, then what happens? We don't get swept away. But if we don't evaluate, then we identify. Oh, maybe I'm going to make a mess of things. So we need to, evaluation means what? We need to identify the mind. Don't identify with the mind. Oh, this is the mind speaking. This is the thought speaking. I don't have to necessarily pay attention to this thought. And then last is elevation. We go ahead. Yeah. So now, at one level, evaluation is, so I talk about this model as inner seer, inner screen and outer scene as a horizontal model. But we could also look at it as a vertical level. That the body, the mind and the soul exist at different levels of reality. And the more we become spiritually conscious, the more we rise above our situations and above our emotions. All of us have difficulties. Life is tough. But our situations are meant to be like the carpet you are sitting on. The carpet should be below us. If the carpet goes above us, what will happen? Two things. We'll get blinded and we'll get suffocated. So similarly, when we let our situations rise above us, when we let our situations dominate our consciousness, then we just, okay. We get a bit overwhelmed. And the more the situation dominates us, the more overwhelmed we get. But our spirituality helps us to rise. What does it mean, rise? Like earlier I said, okay, this is the situation. Okay, right now I'm sitting in this hall, giving this talk. Right now you're sitting in this hall. This is your awareness of your physical situation. But you are the observer of the situation. And I say, okay, I'm feeling interested. I'm feeling a little bored. I'm feeling a little stretched. So you are the observer of your emotion also. So if we can become the observers of our situations and our emotions, then that is elevation. And spirituality is not just about feeling good. Spirituality is about practicing a process by which we raise our consciousness to the spiritual level. And when we raise our consciousness to the spiritual level, we at that time start feeling calm. So if we are in an ocean and huge waves are meeting us, at that time we'll get swept away. But if somebody comes in a helicopter and throws the rope down and lifts us up, or we rise up, then the waves won't threaten us so much. So our spirituality raises above our situations and our emotions. So I'll conclude with one experience and then we can have a few questions. I go every year, almost twice a year to America. So about 2.5 years ago, when I had gone there, some of you may notice I use crutches. So I also use a wheelchair assistant when I'm traveling. So I entered into America and I went through the security and suddenly I heard a loud alarm. And before I understood what was happening, there are 5-6 American security guards pointing their guns at me. Oh, what's going on? And actually I had to catch another connecting flight and this flight was late. So I was a little concerned that we should reach quickly. But this was quite an unexpected turn of events. And then they brought out this crutch out. And they said, what is there inside this crutch? I said, there's nothing here, this is a crutch. He says, no, there is a high explosive alert which came through our machines when this crutch went through. I said, really? He says, what is there? What have you kept in this crutch? He says, I haven't kept anything. He says, no. Then he looked at me, looked at the crutches, and he said, we'll have to break this. Now initially I was a little upset. Now but I got an alarm. He said, if you break this, then how will I walk? He says, that is not my problem. Now, usually, whenever I'm traveling, I love the Bhagavad Gita, and I often recite the Bhagavad Gita verses. Whenever I try to make that a habit. So somehow, when I was doing that, when I was going through that situation, I was very alarmed, annoyed. That time I had been reciting the Bhagavad Gita's 18th chapter, and somehow this verse 1861 at that time came in my mind. 1861 is Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hriddeshe Arjuna Tishtati Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani Yantra Rudhani Mayaya. The Bhagavad Gita says that Krishna is guiding the wanderings of all living beings who are situated on a body which is a machine, which is like a machine. So as I just remembered this verse, recited this verse, because I was just not knowing how to deal with this person. So as I started reciting this verse, suddenly it started triggering a thought. And now, at that time, there are many horror stories of how American security can actually interrogate and get people into a lot of trouble. So, but as I started reciting this verse, it just suddenly struck me, like one movie was about to start. This may go wrong, that may go wrong, that may go wrong. But suddenly when I recited this verse, what happened? It struck me that I have probably taken several hundred flight journeys till now. And if things had to go wrong, at so many times, so many things could have gone wrong. So if Krishna has guided me through all those situations, He will guide me through the situation also. He is with me. He is guiding me. And as soon as I thought this, Tameva Sharanam Gaccha, I just, next verse is surrender to Krishna. I just prayed to Krishna, Krishna, please help me. And what can I do in this situation? How can I serve you in this situation? And as I just prayed like that, actually just by thinking that Krishna is guiding wanderings, I started becoming a little calm. And then, as I said, Krishna, please guide me. Then another American security person came over there. And he looked at me, he looked at the other security, he said, what's going on? He said, we got a high explosive alert for this guy's crutches. Oh, he looked at me. And he looked at the other person and said, I'll take care of this. Okay, you can go. So then he looked at me, he was much more friendly. And he says, what is there inside this crutch? So I just used the crutch, I not put anything inside. Then he looked at it all around. He said, can we open it? And yeah, you can open it. It is flexible, so you can decrease the size also, but I never done it. So it didn't strike me at that time. And then he opened it. And then he looked up, there was nothing. He looked down, he said, there's something dark over here. I said, really? Okay. Then he got some prong, and he put the prong inside it to pull it out. He says, what is this? I asked, what does it look like? He pulled out something more. He says, it's dirt. He says, yeah, that's right. Then he put once again, and he put out, some more dirt came out. And then he put the crutches down and says, cleaning your crutches is not my job. You can go. So later on, I figured out what had happened. Just before going to America, I had gone to Vrindavan. Vrindavan is the holy place of Krishna, and had gone there to take the blessings of the Lord in the holy places over there. So I was walking by the Jamuna at that time. Now the Jamuna, unfortunately, has become extremely polluted. And when the polluted water flows, if sometimes there's an overflow of water, then the dust gets sedimented on the banks of the Jamuna. So just before I had gone to America, this crutch has this bottom rubber tips, we call it. So this had got worn out. And some of the dirt from Jamuna had gone inside the crutches. And after that, I had just replaced that damaged crutch tip with a new crutch tip. But the dirt had stayed inside. And because that dirt had a high metallic content, somehow their security system detected it as an explosive. So I was thinking, the dust of Vrindavan, it is actually an explosive. So it is actually, it can explode. That has the potency of the Lord to explode our illusions. But the reason I told this story is that at one point I was just overwhelmed by anxiety. What will happen now? But as soon as somehow by spiritual habit or whatever, or by spiritual grace, my thought was able to get elevated. And then the perspective change. So to be mindful doesn't just mean to become conscious of our thoughts, but to become conscious that we exist above our thoughts. We are not our thoughts. We are the thinker of our thoughts. We are the chooser of our thoughts. And the process of Bhakti Yoga is a time-honored process for helping us to elevate our consciousness. If we, for example, when we chant the holy names, we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this mantra is like a elevator for our consciousness. So if we enter into an elevator, we will get elevated. Similarly, if we just attentively, meditatively chant the mantra and we let the mantra enter into our consciousness, then our consciousness enters into the mantra. And just by such repeated contemplation, meditation on divine sound vibration, our consciousness will start rising upward. And for me at that time it happened through the recitation of the Gita verse. There are many spiritual sound vibrations which are very powerful tools for elevating our consciousness. And there is one thing to situationally, the situation is difficult to deal with, let me raise my consciousness upwards. But another thing is that habitually our consciousness rises upwards. And when that happens, then life's ups and downs will not toss us up and down so much. Life is tough and everybody will face dualities. Success, failure, honor, dishonor. These are like waves coming in the ocean. To the extent we are in the ocean, we get swept away. To the extent we rise above the ocean, to the extent we stay calm, we stay undisturbed. And in this way, the best way to become mindful is to become Krishna-full. To make our consciousness full of Krishna. To learn to raise our consciousness so that God, Krishna, becomes a conscious presence for us. And when we understand that He is the guide, He is the overseer, He is with me, and I am here to serve Him. Every situation, how can I serve Him? With that attitude, we will find that our thoughts may come and hit us, but they won't delude us, they won't distract us. They will come, they will stay, and they will go. So I'll summarize. I spoke today on the topic of be mindful or your mind will make you a fool. I talked about this in 4 parts. What was first E? Anyone remembers? Education. I talked about with our education today, we have got phenomenal capacity to control the outer world. But still, more people than ever in the past are hurting and killing themselves through addiction and suicide. So what's going on? So I talked about, we need education about our inner world, and the Bhagavad Gita offers that education through a model. What are 3-level model of the self? Body, mind, soul. Yes. And these are like what? Hardware, software, user. Yes, thank you. So then we discussed about, we did the thought experiment. To understand this, it's like the mind, the body and the physical reality is like the outer scene. The mind is the inner screen. And the soul, the consciousness is the inner seer. So basically, when we consider 2 typical mental health problems, when we have depression, then the screen becomes like a TV replaying all the bad things that have happened in the past. Like a tragedy story. I told the story of that girl who became suicidal just based on one unanswered phone call. And conversely, if the mind goes into the future, then we start getting a horror story, we get overwhelmed by anxiety. So not every thought deserves our thought. That brought us to the 3rd point. It was, 2nd was experimentation, 3rd was evaluation. Like a cricket umpire, he should be what? Disinterested, not uninterested. So we observe and evaluate our thoughts based on merit. And then I talked about one way to not be swept away by our thoughts is to elevate our consciousness. I told the story of how spiritual sound vibration can raise us above our situations and our emotions. So our situations are like carpets. They need to be under us. If they become above us, we become suffocated and blinded. Then we overreact and we hurt ourselves. So spiritual practices such as mantra meditation, they are like an elevator. When our consciousness enters into it, we enter into them and they elevate us. With our consciousness elevated, we can face life's ups and downs with greater maturity. And then we can progress in our life. Go ahead. Yeah. So life is tough. This is the concluding point, that we can't be, even bad things happen in our lives. But even if we can't be grateful for all situations, we can be grateful in all situations. This bad thing has happened, but I have a resource to rise above this situation. And by that, I look for what is the good in this situation, not just what is the bad. And thus we can create positive energy in our lives. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So now we are opening the floor for question answers. So those of you who are willing to ask questions to Prabhuji are requested to kindly raise their hands and the mic will come up to you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. My question is about what kind of activities we are considering in ISKCON to start something like suicidal helpline or something. We are working on that. I'm just out of curiosity I'm asking.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, is ISKCON working on starting a suicide helpline or something like that?
What I see is ISKCON is in right stage to do something about suicidal issues. That's why I said.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
ISKCON is a very broad organization, and you could say that it is like one river, but there are many currents moving in parallel. So the main focus in Krishna consciousness, in the Krishna consciousness movement, is to provide people resources for raising the consciousness. So like we have temples, we have kirtans, we have satsangs. All these can raise people's consciousness. And there are many people whom I have met in my travels across the world who were suicidal, who had suicidal urges. But when they started practicing bhakti, it helped them to find some meaning and purpose in their life and overcome the difficult situations. Along with that, there are several devotees who are themselves specially interested in mental health. And this is more in the Western world than in India, although India also is happening. In fact, many of our Western centers, there are active measures going on that each spiritual center can have also a mental health care center associated with it. You can have a psychologist over there, or you can have a wellness expert over there. And of course, there are individual devotees who have been in mental health and their care providers. As I mentioned, one of them is also a suicide intervention counselor. So there are devotees who are doing that at an individual level. And I feel that those who feel inspired to take up this initiative, there are a lot of resources and wisdom available. So as the situations and opportunities come up, definitely a lot is being done and a lot more will be done. Thank you.
Thank you. So can we connect after the event with you for this?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So my question will be like with the help of spirituality we can elevate our consciousness and we can control our mind. However, we come across the situation wherein we have to deal with others' mind. Likewise the boss, likewise the spouse. So if my consciousness is not matching with the pace of boss, so I can switch the company. That's one of the solution. But in case of spouse, in case of family members, how we can deal? So that is.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so if we are troubled by others' minds, because they are acting in ways that are troubling for us, what do we do? Scientists say that there are 100 billion nerves in our body, and everyone has in their life at some time or the other some person who seems to have specialized in agitating all those 100 billion nerves. Just feel it unbearable. That we can deal with this at 3 levels. What do we do? First is, that we have horizontal relationship with others and we have a vertical relationship with Krishna. The horizontal relationships are important. The vertical relationship is eternal. So if our sense of self-identity and self-worth comes only from a horizontal relationship, that means there's emotional dependence. If somebody identifies themselves, oh, I am this person's husband or this person's wife, if that becomes our defining identity, then any problem in that relationship will become unbearable for us. But if our defining identity is spiritual, I'm a soul who is a part of God, and as a part of God I'm playing various, that is my foundational identity, but with that foundational identity I'm playing many functional roles. So one is a professional, one is as a spouse, another might be as a parent, another might be as a son, daughter, whatever. So if we identify ourselves based on our fundamental identity, then upheavals in our functional roles won't shake us so much. Yes, this is a problem and I have to deal with it, but that doesn't mean that this is the beginning and the end of my life. No other person needs to be given so much control over our lives that they become our defining identity. That's why if we are spiritually connected by regular devotional practices, we will not get so affected by other people's actions. That's at one level of just learning to live with the situation. All of us, we can have tender hearts, but to live in the world, we have to cover those tender hearts with thick skins. If our skin is also tender, we'll be ripped apart. So our spiritual practices thicken our skin, and thus even if some people speak something, do something which is hurtful, we don't get that hurt by it, because we understand that this is not my defining relationship. We may have to live with pain, but we don't have to live in pain. If I define myself only by this relationship, then I will be living forever in pain. But this is my one relationship, it's an important relationship, but I have an eternal relationship, and it's a part of my life. Then we can see that we may live with pain. It's a part of my life. It's a component, not the container of my consciousness. Second thing is that when somebody is very much troubled by their mind, in 13:28, Krishna says, Samam pashyati sarvatra samavasthitam ishwaram nahi nastyatmana atmanam tato yati param gatim. So in that series 28, 29, 30, he says that you understand that everybody is separate from their mind. That there is the soul and there is the mind. Quite often we fix labels on people. You are short-tempered, you are insensitive, you are lazy, you are arrogant. And then when we fix labels on people like that, basically what are we doing? We are making them more bounded between the mind and the soul. Because those particular behavioral tendencies, the impressions that cause those behavioral tendencies are in the mind. So rather than saying that this person is arrogant, this person is irritable, what we say is that they have a mind and we and they are partners in helping them to deal with the mind. So when they are calm, if we don't talk with them judgmentally, why did you do this? But gently explain, when you spoke like this, it hurt me very much. It made things very difficult for so and so reasons. Basically, we at least in our own behavior separate their mind and them. Because the mind's conditionings, they are doing acting in a particular way, but they are separate. And everybody in reflection does recognize that hey, I shouldn't have spoken like that. But if we can help them to differentiate that way, then we see that it's not that they are hurting me, rather hurt people. So they are hurt by their own mind. Their mind maybe is hypersensitive or hyperactive, and they are hurting me. So if we try to link with their mind, link with them, and help them separate from the mind. Then we can see that we are partners in dealing with their mind. And then our mind also has issues. And if we want to point out others' vulnerabilities, then we need to admit our own vulnerabilities also. Otherwise, people think that we are sitting on a high pedestal and we are judging and criticizing them. No, yeah, my mind also troubles me like this. And I would like you to help too. Whenever I start getting angry, too much, say, please point it out to me. Maybe in a discreet way or whatever. So, when we do it that way, then we become partners in helping each other deal with our minds. And third thing is that we all need to create some pause button for ourselves. Whenever somebody speaks hurtfully, our tendency is to hit back. But that usually makes things worse. So how can we press the pause button? For us it might be deep breathing, it might be maybe counting till 10, it might be counting 10 Hare Krishna Maha Mantras, maybe remembering some verses about anger or whatever. Now find out something which can naturally captivate your consciousness and then direct the consciousness there. So it could be some nice spiritual music, some attractive divine picture or whatever. Just keep that and direct your thoughts over there. So that means this movie is about to start. Oh, this person is so irritating, and you want to hit back at them. But if we can start another, we can have another window pop up on it, and then we start another one. Oh, this is terrible, but still this is wonderful. Focus on this. Let me calm myself down and let me deal with the situation. Then we will be able to speak in a way to give people peace of mind, to help them calm down. But often we speak to give them a piece of our mind. And we just make things very messy. So by strengthening our vertical relationship, by learning to differentiate between the person and their mind, and by providing ourselves a pause button, we can learn to deal with difficult people more effectively. Okay? Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Solve yeah.
I have an issue with myself that more situations comes with us that if we achieve something, we become more pop-up and joyful. And if something bad happens with us, we become depressed. So in both situations, we should be calm. So how can we do that?
Okay. Thank you. So if we become elated in success and dejected in failure, how can we stay calm? It's not that we are meant to be unfeeling. Naturally, if something good happens, we'll feel happy. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "Na praharishet priyam prapya, no dvijet prapya cha priyam." He says, when something good happens, don't become elated. And when something bad happens, don't become dejected. But the point is, Krishna is acknowledging that sometimes good things happen, sometimes bad things happen. So if we see that life is like 100-mile marathon, not 100-meter sprint, then yes, I achieved success in this is good, but my purpose is bigger. I need to move on. And I failed in this, okay, that's not good, but let me move on. So if we reduce our vision of life to only one thing, this is what I have to do, then we'll get more carried away by the emotions arising. But if you have a bigger vision of ourselves, if you understand that we are actually spiritual beings on a multi-life journey of spiritual evolution, then whatever good or bad comes in our life, we'll accept it. We'll appreciate if it is good. We'll analyze and learn if it is bad, but we'll move on. That's why we need to know that success is just like, success is good, but it is just one small good landmark on our journey. Success is not the conclusion of our life journey. So good things happening in our, if you are going somewhere to meet some relative who is going to, from whom you will inherit a huge property, maybe 1 crore rupees or something like that. And say you're going along the road, and then you suddenly see a 10 rupee note lying on the road. Now, if you can pick it up, you'll pick it up. But if you try to pick it up and it starts flying away. Now, you won't go ahead chasing the 10 rupee note, and if that makes you later reaching for the 1 crore destination, then you won't do that. Why? Yes, 10 rupee note is good. And if say you have 10 rupee note and somebody suddenly comes and robs the 10 rupee note from you, naturally you will try to prevent it. But if that person just runs away, if your vision is on the 1 crore, then the 10 rupee, you will notice it, but you will not get agitated by it. So similarly for us, if we have that big purpose in life, we are souls and we are all meant for eternal happiness. And in this life, we are all meant by God's grace to make meaningful contributions. And our contributions are bigger than our successes and our failures. So if we learn to see success and failures like 10 rupee gains and losses, we will acknowledge them, but we won't get overwhelmed by them. Okay? Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I too have much interest in astrophysics, mathematics and quantum physics also. So, when going into astrophysics, it simply means that going away from spirituality, because we have that astrophysics is in our consciousness, that mathematics is in our consciousness. So we will devote time to that only. The great scientists that devoted their life for making a new equation. And when I practice spirituality, I sometimes think, should I do mathematics or practice spirituality? So it is hard for me to find in what should I devote my time, because that is also much important.
Thank you. So if astrophysics and mathematics consumes us so much that then we get distracted from spirituality, so what should we do? So there are two understandings of spirituality. There's an exclusive understanding of spirituality and there's an inclusive understanding of spirituality. Exclusive means, spirituality means say coming to a temple, doing some mantra meditation, reading some spiritual books, and we need some exclusive focus on spirituality. Otherwise, our consciousness will not become spiritualized. But an inclusive understanding of spirituality means that actually the ultimate spiritual reality, God, is not just present in the temple. Yes, He's present everywhere. Yatah pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam swakarmana tam abhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. In 1845, 46, 47, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna analyzes this. And he says that supreme being, yatah pravrittir bhutanam, from whom everything has come, yena sarvamidam tatam, by whom everything is pervaded. What should you do? Swakarmana tam abhyarcha, by your work, worship Him. Some people translate this as work is worship. Now Krishna is not saying work is worship. If work were worship, then the donkey would be the greatest worshipper. So, we're not saying work is not worship, but work has to be done in the mood of worship. So, what Krishna is saying is, whatever activities we are doing in our life, we see that actually God is present here also. So, I'm doing this, I've been given some intelligence, I've been given some interest, and let me use it in a mood of service. If, I would say there are three different possibilities over here. For some people, their academic study is just something they have to do to get a job and settle in their lives. They have no intrinsic interest in their subject. Then for them, if they go very deep into it, it will become a burden. But then they just do it functionally, they study reasonably well so that they get good grades and they can get a job. And they will do that, and anyway they are not very interested in their subject. So then they can devote time for direct spiritual activities. So exclusive spirituality is required for everyone. But the inclusive spirituality will vary from person to person. So if somebody has to say this is one extreme, then it's completely functional for them. This is a job for him. But for somebody else, that particular field is a passion. It's like it completely absorbs them. Then we have to understand that actually everyone's deepest experience is their experience of Krishna. That means if somebody is an author and they spend some hours just analyzing, should I put this word or not? William Wordsworth once wrote a letter to his friend. He said, I spend my morning very productively. After breakfast, in my new poems, in one of my new poems, I added a comma. Before lunch, I deleted that comma. So 3 hours I was thinking, if I put this comma, how does it sing? What is the meter? What is the effect on the tune? I said, what is there in a comma? But what is that person experiencing over there? They're experiencing something sublime. Now they may not know that they're experiencing Krishna. What Krishna says is, everything attractive in this world manifests a spark of his splendor. Yad yad vibhuti matsattvam shrimadurjitam eva tattadevav gachatvam mama tejomsha sambhava. So that means if somebody is experiencing such sublime absorption in words, or say somebody is experiencing it in science, then they are actually experiencing a glimpse of God through it. Now they may not know it, they may even be godless at times, but actually they are experiencing God. That's what is making them just go, forget everything else and go into that. So if we understand it this way, then what will happen? So this is also one way I can contribute, I can connect. So we need exclusive spirituality for a fixed amount of time. But if we are very deeply interested in a field, then we can see that what I'm experiencing here is also Krishna. But I have to learn to see that this is Krishna. And that's why it is good if you can associate with like-minded people. When among devotee community, if you find somebody is a scientist, then you associate with them and then you try to understand how do they see God in science. We may or may not be able to explicitly talk about it in our research immediately, but we can see the divine. So then we don't have to see this as two separate things. This is my spirituality and this is my profession. Could spiritualize your profession also. So for most of us, we'll be somewhere in between. Now, for many of us, our job is more than a job, but it is not like a full-time passion. Then we have to balance accordingly. But we can have both time for exclusive spirituality and time for inclusive spirituality. Okay?
Hare Krishna. So we all know that we have many questions to ask, but then we'll have to conclude this forum right away. So we'd like to thank once again His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu for very wonderfully enlightening all of us. A huge round of applause. Thank you, Prabhuji.
So as was mentioned in my introduction, I have written some books. I've written about 25 books. Out of them, some are over here. So this is Demystifying Reincarnation.